I'm live. That is good. So, all right. When you're here, please let me know in the live chat. So that's enough light in here, which is good. Well, we can do it like this. This place is clean, so all I have to do is bottles over there. Good. All right. When you're here, let me know in the live chat, please. Thank you very much. I want to keep this live as short as possible. The moment you understand it, the live is over. Thank you for the thumbs up, whoever gave it. It's very much appreciated. Hold on. I'll communicate with the live chat like this. I think that's better. So as always, I'll wait the first 5 minutes out for people to come in. Some people are a bit later with receiving notifications, that's why. So for those that are here, let me know the live chat you're here. Thank you very much. Good. Five, thank you for being here. Messe, thank you for being here. Knam Photography, thank you for being here. GT, thank you for being here. James, thank you for being here. Hayden Jim, thank you for being here also. It's good to have you all over here. Let's say we still have 2.5 minutes before we begin. Clifford, thank you for being here. That's good. The topic of tonight is the political power of dark porn. Well, power, quote unquote, because it's only powerful when people fall for the trick. So I'm going to explain what dark porn is, how it was used in ancient times, how it's used now, and what's the trick behind it. Because once you understand that simple trick, once you see through that, dark porn loses its grip over you. And once it loses its grip over you, you will never process daily life the same again. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Well, at least night from here. Even though it's still a bit light outside, doesn't matter. Good. Thanks for the other thumbs up, whoever gave them. I have the light in the living room on and also the light over here, so there's perfect lighting on me. So there's no dark atmosphere around. I mean, quite lightning. There's no darkness in this place that I live, absolutely not. Even though you have some voodoo worshippers around here, but it's a place where black folks are living, so yes, I expect such stuff to happen, but hey, I'm in peace over here. Gino, thank you for being here, man. You're right on time. We're about to begin soon. Just 1 more minute. So it's good. Justin Bergman, you're just in time. We're about to begin within 40 seconds. So get your pen and paper, please, that you can make notes. I want to keep this live as short as possible because it's not a very big topic. You know, sometimes you find those false teachers who hold hour-long lectures about dark topics. And by having hours-long lectures about dark topics with many, many notes to many books written about dark topics, that gives you the impression as if darkness is so powerful. It gives you the impression that darkness is so hard to overcome. But once you figure out what darkness really is, And once you figure out what evil is, and once you figure out what type of joke it is, by simply being Christ-centered, it's a life changer. It's a game changer. So I focus on that. All right, so, okay. Time for class to begin. What is porn? Porn is visually suggesting an outcome that will never come. That's what porn is. Now, you have sexual porn, something we're familiar with because it's preached against by churches. It's abhorred by society, even though they still use it. Now, you also have food porn. You have musical porn. Porn is simply you trigger someone's base urges to get an outcome they will never get. And you do this by presenting an image of something that's not real. So do you follow me now? Porn is triggering someone's base urges to invest in an outcome that will never happen. Repeat it in the live chat. Porn is triggering someone's base urges to invest in an outcome that will never happen. I'll wait till you repeat it in the live chat, and also note for yourself. I'll wait for you to do it. Porn. Porn is triggering someone's base urges to invest in an outcome that will never happen. Okay, someone repeated it. I'll wait for 1 or 2 more people. Note also down for yourself. Porn is triggering someone's base urges to invest in an outcome that will never happen. What's a base urge? Now, there's a difference between an urge and a drive. A drive is masculine. A drive is like fire, something that keeps you going. I want it. That's a drive. An urge is, oh, I really want to. An urge is feminine. A drive is masculine. Now, males can also have urges, okay? And not all urges are sexual. You can have an urge to relax. You can have an urge to play music. You can have an urge to hang out. You can have an urge to go out in the sun. So urges are not always only related to sex, okay? But urges in general are feminine because they're more in a begging manner. A drive is masculine. Then your mind. A drive is mental. A drive is, this is going to happen. I want this. And an urge is, oh, I really want to. That's an urge. A drive is, it's going to happen no matter what. That's a drive. So a drive is more masculine. So females in general don't have drives. Men do. And most of the time it's the females that have urges. Men can have both drives and urges, but men most of the time have drives because that's more masculine. Do you understand the difference between an urge and a drive? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know if you understand the difference between an urge and a drive. Okay? Clifford understands it. Does the rest understand it also? So, you cannot trigger a drive because a drive is something masculine, it's mental. Okay? And men are more analytically wired. So, because of this, you can't trigger a drive because a drive is something internal. A drive is an internal motivation. An urge is a thirst or hunger for some external sensation. So an urge is longing for external sensations. What an urge is. So as long as people have this thirst or hunger to be sensualized from the outside, as long as they have that, You can trick them easily. And there's nothing wrong with urges. Urges are natural. But in the world, urges tend to become idols. Okay? People tend to idolize the urges they have, especially sexual urges. Okay? So, if you want the masses to flow in one direction without people disagreeing one another, trigger their base urges. And here's the thing, lust in itself is not bad. Lust is just a strong desire for something. You have a drive, you have an urge, and you have a lust. Lust is really the desire, the strong desire for something. You can have a strong desire for food, a strong desire for alcohol, a strong desire to just be left alone. A lust is a strong desire. It doesn't even relate in itself to sexuality. But when people hear the word lust, they automatically think about sex. All right? So, when people's base urges are triggered, they now crave this external sensation. And it's then that you present the sensation to them in a visual package. And once they see the visual package, they want the package because they think the package is going to make them happy. They think the package is going to also help benefit them in other ways. So once the base urges are triggered, now you present the visual package, and the visual package will be perceived as something valuable. So you're tricking people into believing that what you present onto them is valuable. But the base urge needs to be triggered first. Now, as I mentioned before, base urges are not evil, they're not sinful, they're not narcissistic, just natural. But the enemy uses them because he knows it's an easy trick. And it's one of the easiest tricks that there is. So, trigger the base urges, present a visual package, whether it's in the form of statues, in the form of dress codes, or today in the form of visual media, through television, through billboards out there, or social media. By doing that, people are bombarded with this visual representation, and eventually they'll believe in this visual representation you give them, and from that point on, they're trapped in idolatry. Just in us, are drives to more natural existence? No. An urge is a longing for external sensation. That's an urge. And it's more a feminine thing, because that's what females often do. The female is built to be driven by the man and to be led by the man. That's why God wants the man to be the head of the household. So urges are more something that's frequent in females. It also happens in men. But drives are masculine. A drive is a mental, fierce dedication. This is going to happen. This is what I want. This is what I'm going for. That's the difference. It's very easy to trick people with visual representations, with urges. With drives, it doesn't work that way. So, now we know what porn is. Now you will see that advertisement itself is pornography. They call it advertisement, but it's really pornography. It's economic pornography. That's what it really is. Why do you think they keep showing you that expensive car? When you look at some of those commercials of those cars, and one doesn't matter which brand it is, they show you a guy driving a car that's very expensive. They show you how beautiful or how the car is. They show the car going very fast. And then they show you those women. Well, let's hope they're women and they're not co-transgender. But see those female figures on high heels with short skirts, very sexy. That's to trigger your sexual longings coming towards you in the car. Why are they doing that? Because they want you to believe that that car has the potential to stabilize you as a man. That's what they want to do. And they're using the sexual imagery to trick you into pay attention to the car. You get it? Now, It's a trick on your mind, because there are many people out there with expensive cars, and no woman looks at them. They're losers, considered by the community. So the idea that just having that car will secure you as a man, or if you would speak it out, people say this is quite ridiculous. But that's what is suggested through the visual imagery. And because the mind cannot distinguish between fact and fiction, the mind will perceive it as real, and the mind will experience it as real. So even by looking at that commercial, you feel elation in your body with only the idea of possessing that car. And now, as a man, you develop a drive to be financially successful to get the car. So they can't trigger your drives, but they want to ignite a drive in you in their direction. Do you understand me? Let me know in the live chat. They can't trigger a drive, but they can only ignite a drive in you in a certain direction. Or maybe they keep showing you a lot of dead women with blue spots were beaten over and over again. So they keep traumatizing you with images of women being battered and beaten or killed. And then you're so overwhelmed by seeing all those women being battered, it kind of frightens you. And then they keep saying violence against women, violence against women. So now in your mind, you'll experience if violence against women is something that happens every second around you. It can be that you live in a neighborhood where the women are quite safe, but because you're bombarded with images of women being victimized, your mind's going to experience the danger as if it's happening to you. You may even be a man, but still experience as if the violence is happening just around you. And as a result, you're traumatized, and now you're going to look around you, and every man you will see as a potential victimizer of a woman, because you're bombarded with images of females being victimized. They don't show you men that are being victimized by women or anything like that, but they keep putting women in the category of a victim all the time. What this does is it triggers your base urge to be loved, okay? And because you have this urge to be loved, you now develop this attachment, this attachment of anger against violence against women. And it's this aversive attachment, because it's an attachment. This attachment of anger, this aversive attachment, now turns into a wound in your energy field. And this wound in your energy field is what grants demons access to you. So now you are easily driven into feminist movements. You're driven into maybe MGTOW movements. Now you're driven into movements. Movements you would have never joined naturally. But because you have this attachment of anger or aversive attachment against something, that aversive attachment has become a wound in your energy field, and demons can hijack you through that wound. So that's also pornography. All those campaigns that fight against violence against women, we won't consider them pornography, but it is pornography. Because it suggests onto you that if you just fight hard enough against a situation is going to become better. And it never does. The only thing it does is it distorts and deforms your mind on how you relate to males and females, and it makes more sexual disharmony. So actually, all that imagery of battered women are actually perpetrating the same harm on women on a large scale. So I've given you a few examples of pornography in the present day. Now, in the past, it often happened not only amongst the ancient Europeans, but amongst the ancient Greeks. This happened. It happened that some of the older men in their 40s or 50s were dissatisfied at life, and they would see teenage boys, and they would get jealous and envious that those teenage boys were fresh in life and that they were more in harmony with the opposite sex. Because after those 40, 50-year-old men, they would have wives that they were mistreating. They would be estranged from their children. So what would they do? They would gang up together. They would look for a teenage boy to sodomize, to sexually abuse, and to beat also. And then they would hang him on a tree to relieve themselves. And they would just look at the battered body of that boy, abuse, hanging there, dead on a tree, and they would feel at ease. They've lost their frustration at life. And all the other teenage boys would walk by and see one of their peers hanging on a tree, sexually harmed, beaten, and hung over there. And this would trigger fright in them. And they would think, ooh, if you ever talk back to one of those older men, you know what they're going to do to you. So when those older men come, you better be afraid. You better show some fearful recognition of them. That's what respect is, fearful recognition. But this happens quite often, that older men in ancient Europe, especially in the ancient Mediterranean Europe, among where the Greeks were, because this was a Greek thing, actually. It was a Greek abomination that their older men would become sexually jealous and envious of younger men. So as a teenage boy, you would be in danger, even being around older men. Well, it shouldn't be that way. And this is where this whole attitude came from, that if someone is older than you, you need to give them special honor. When grown folks talk, you shut up. All that attitude comes from the ancient Greeks. It comes from this. So the young men were all terrified of being sexually vandalized by the older men. Okay, and some of those older men were even relatives of theirs. Now, over time, this kind of escalated, and when the Greeks took over the world in the Greek Empire, the Greek administrators realized we can't just allow men to become envious and just rape and hang boys like that anymore. You know what? We as the government are going to take it over. They want to be entertained. They want to be sensationalized with sexual violence, so we will provide the violence for them. That's how we keep them at ease. So instead of at a random tree in a village or in a town, you would have a cross placed somewhere, which is an X, referring to Helios, the sun god Apollo, Satan's Nephilim son. And if someone was a criminal or someone was a target of the community, the government now would set that individual up, they would arrest him, they would have soldiers or other creeps that would do the sexual violation, and then they would be slammed, nailed at this cross, and they would be there for days. So now the public had a living victim that was dying. For almost a week, someone would hang over there, naked, humiliated, for everyone to see, no way to escape. Their bones were broken, so that even if they would get off the cross, they wouldn't be able to walk and go anywhere. They would be crippled for life because their bones were completely broken. And that was the narcissistic supply, the sensation for the masses. And this reduced the sexual envy and sexual jealousy in the older male population. So do you understand now how the crucifixion developed in history? The crucifixion was an expression of dark porn, straight up. Throughout the Greek Empire, which later became the Roman Empire, as well as the administrations outside of it, when they saw a cross, people were terrified because they put a cross over there, so sooner or later someone's going to hang over there. So people were already afraid, thinking, who's next? So the cross was a symbol of dark porn, vandalizing and sexual violence against men to satisfy the sensational urges of angry, bitter, older men. Okay? And for the women, they had other variants. For example, the ancient Greeks also had those small witch cults where you had older women who were the ringleaders, and you had families donating some of their daughters to those cults, and those daughters were not allowed to grow up in the community. They grew up in that cult that lived somewhere in the forest or on some small island or whatever, and they would be sexually groomed by those older women, those older witches, and they were prohibited from having natural sexual interactions with men. And those women, from time to time, would be used on parties, on weddings, or on public events to dance in a sensual way and all of that. And from time to time, one of them would just place somewhere as bait, and then all the rapist urges of the community would be unloaded on them. So then you would have 2 or 3 of those virgin witches, as they were often referred to, being placed in throughout a festival, and you would have like 40, 80, 100 men all going on, ramming through them. And after it was over, they would just join the cult back again, and that was their tribute. They were used as energy sponges to withdraw the tension from the community. So, fallen mankind gets sensation from sexual violence. It's something many psychologists don't want to admit. It's something anthropologists, it's a taboo subject in anthropology to even admit this. But I just admit it because I'm an anthropologist. I got my degree. I did my research. I don't care what people think. I'm an independent scholar. So I'm telling you as it is. Fallen mankind gets a high. They get sensation from sexual violence. Not when it happening to them, or when it happens to unfortunate ones, and then they get the ease that they're not unfortunate ones. That's why you also had this ritual where you had a little boy that was sexually vandalized, and that boy would grow up with mental issues, and they would just put a white robe on him, paint him with makeup, and everyone would laugh at him throughout the village and throughout town. That's where the whole concept of the clown comes from. Okay? So fallen mankind gets sensationalized. They get sensation. They get an intense high as a group by having sexual violence and sexual rage redirected at unfortunate people. So, knowing this about fallen mankind, the only thing Satan has to do is to trick those base urges using visuals. He got the masses. As simple as that. So, now you know the trick. Because you also know now the difference between an urge and a drive. And that's what bloodlust is. Bloodlust is simply getting a high of having sexual harm happening to someone else and not you. Because it could have been you, but it's not you, and that's how you get it, at least not me. So, now you know the dark, bitter, shocking fact about fallen mankind, about human beings in a fallen state or human beings without God. They are inherent, they are chronic fleers, and as sexual beings in a fallen state, fallen mankind is sexually diseased. So sexually we are sexually uneasy with ourselves. We can't handle our vulnerabilities as sexual beings. So because we want compensation for being vulnerable, we want the vulnerability of someone else to be vandalized and harmed, because then we get a sense of power that at least it's not happening to us. That is the ingredient of all porn. You're lucky, you're fortunate, it's not happening to you because you have this thing you can chase after. That is the seed of all porn, right over there. And both men and women in a fallen state have this bloodlust that can be triggered in them. All of fallen mankind has this bloodlust somewhere buried in their subconscious. Of course, when someone is a child, it can be triggered. But once someone's in their teenage years and they develop sexual shame, the moment sexual shame is developed, that bloodlust is there. You can't have bloodlust without sexual shame. Sexual shame must be there before bloodlust can emerge. So all of fallen mankind has sexual shame as a result of being in a fallen state. So bloodlust is something that can be triggered in all people that are not renewed in their minds. Do you follow me now? Let me know in the live chat. Now demons can trigger base urges through dreams, but for that to happen, there must be organized witchcraft going on somewhere. But that's a little different thing. So, once you admit that you were born in a fallen state, that's not your fault, nobody can blame you, but this fallen state is a bad state, but there's a way out, which is Christ. And the moment you admit that and you receive Christ, you're born again. And once you realize, you know what? As a redeemed mankind, I ought to operate in a redeemed way. Let me face the fallenness that is left in my thinking. And once you face the fallenness that's left in your thinking, you don't even want to be that way anymore, and you change for the better. Okay? And that's why in the modern day world, pornography is prohibited. If you do open pornography on YouTube into your face, YouTube will block it. If you do it openly in the streets, people will block it. Why? Because it's too confronting of the bloodthirst that can be inside of people. That bloodthirst, that sexual envy and sexual jealousy of fallen mankind, there's nothing more dangerous than it. You can better encounter someone that has anger issues than encounter someone with sexual envy and sexual shame. Sexual resentment, let's call it like that. Sexual resentment is a better way to call it. Sexual resentment, which is what bloodthirst is a very dangerous attitude in the mind. Once that attitude is triggered and sponsored, it will be very difficult to get it out of someone. Look, someone that's driven by sexual resentment, they don't want solutions. They don't care about solutions. They don't care about safety. They just want revenge. They become obsessed with revenge. And often they can't even tell you what they're so angry about. Now, in ancient times, you had crucifixions to satisfy this sexual resentment in the masses. Today, it's done in a more covert ways. Today, it's done through racism. Yes, racism is sexual resentment in action. That's why the white supremacists would leave their homelands in Europe, sail all the way to Africa to kidnap white folks, ship them all the way to the Caribbean, and then you had other white supremacists over there waiting to rape the black women. While in Europe, teenage white girls were kidnapped over and over again by Islamic pirates who looted the wealth of white folks by asking for ransom for the little girls. Why were the white supremacists using their weapons and their ships in the Mediterranean, which is very close to Europe, to shut down those Islamic pirates? They could have easily done it, but no. They preferred to cross the ocean, to go to the slave auctions and the slave markets to escalate and rape black women, which they often did, even when they were pregnant. And sometimes you even impregnate little black girls. Hey, and they also did the same with Native Americans also. Racism is sexual resentment in action. But when people talk about racism, they seldom talk about the sexual part because that becomes too confrontable. That's what it is. Racism is sexual resentment organized. Politically organized sexual resentment, that's what racism is. So how would you describe racism? Politically organized sexual resentment. That's all racism is. Do you understand this? Let me know in the live chat. So, just protesting in the streets will not happen because the root of racism has to do with sexual resentment. Okay? So, racism is something demons came up with to exploit the sexual resentment of mankind. That's why historians never talk about the Barbary pirates that kidnapped teenage white girls throughout Europe for a very long time. Now, the war times also kidnapped little boys also. They went all the way to Scandinavia, Finland, Sweden, Norway. They went all over the place. They even went to the colonies where white folks were migrating to do that crap. And the colonial powers with their navies and with their gunpowder and their warships did nothing about it, but because they were so obsessed with exploiting black folks, with keeping black folks down. Okay, but you have all that navy, all those navies, all those warships, all that manpower that are armed, but you're not protecting your own girls, who are the future mothers of your own community. You're out of your mind. Yes, but that's what they did. As long as they could exploit black folks, they didn't care about sacrificing the future mothers of their own communities. Sexual resentment. That's what it is. Sexual resentment is politically organized. No, racism is sexual resentment that's expressed politically by victimizing another group sexually and economically. Now, today, the sexual victimization cannot happen that easily. So now it's more on the economic level that oppression continues. So now you know how deep the subject of porn is. So here's the thing. Porn is not seeing a picture of a naked man or naked woman because we were born naked and we will leave the world naked. Porn is a suggestion visually that can never happen. So that's why if you would go to, don't do it, if you would go to YouPorn or Pornhub or whatever type of hub on either the dark web or on the common web, we have all those porn videos, you'll see a lot of men who underwent surgery to look like women. They mutilated their own bodies to look like women, and they will perform black magic in those violent rituals that you think is sex. And that's why your brain gets so attached to it. Your brain gets so sensationalized because it's unnatural what you're seeing. If it was an actual man and a woman making love, you wouldn't watch it for long. You should think, oh, you would get bored by it because you wouldn't be able to process it. Visual porn is so addictive because it's an unnatural thing that your mind cannot process. Okay? And because sexual shame is something, is an effect of being in a fallen state, porn works 99% of the time. Not in all its manifestations, but because remember, it's not just Pornhub and all those things that are porn. The advertisements out there are also porn. All that political propaganda is also porn. All that religious propaganda of, oh, you need to join this church or else you're going to hell. Oh, you know, if you can die today, you're lost. It's also porn. As if joining that local church is going to solve all your issues. No, it won't. So, now we know what the political, quote-unquote, power is of dark porn. And now we know how it's triggered and what's the root of it. So now we can teach the youth, and we can teach those that are willing to hear, to reform them. Sex magic is different from dark porn. Sex magic is just using energetic tricks to get people to move in the direction you want. That's sex magic. Dark porn is triggering sexual resentment into people or using the present sexual resentment just to maintain a grip on them on a mass scale. That's dark porn. And that's why porn is the biggest industry on the earth. Even, I'm talking about Pornhub and even those illegal sites where you have child pornography or animal pornography. All of porn, it's a $1 trillion industry, the biggest one in the world. And if you include the unofficial porn, like advertisement, you'll see that porn is the biggest industry down here. That's why this system is called a Babylon system. That's why this system is called the Great Whore, the whorish system. And here's another side effect of dark porn is that some people begin to hold on to sexual shame, thinking, don't even talk about sex. Don't even talk about sexual activities. Don't even talk about body parts because that's sinful, that's evil. What? So that's how you have some people going quite far in sexual restrictions because they're too afraid of their own sexuality. And they want to transfer this fright onto others also. Churches love to do this. But then you have people who just surrender to sexual impulses without restraints, and you end up in very dangerous situations. That happens in brothels. So both the licentious escalation of sex as well as the toxic restrictions in church or in religion, both are filthy because both bring forth pollution. Sexual harmony is what mankind needs, and it only comes from embracing God's plan for you. But most churches don't even know about sexual harmony because they are in the sexual shame camp because they're part of the beast system themselves. So now you know why the world is so invested in keeping you sexually dysfunctional. Especially the men. The men are targeted day and night. And so I'm telling you, brothers in Christ, don't believe any promise of this world. Because they're lying to you. They're scamming you. And ladies, don't believe the images the world are presented to you. They don't care about you. They want you mentally defective because the world worships demons who hate females. So you get the connection. So that is how we undo the grip of dark porn over our communities. And it's only believers who are able to get rid of this grip over the communities. Unbelievers can't do it because they are still in a fallen state and they still have sexual shame as a result of being in a fallen state. So they cannot be delivered from sexual shame. So they cannot be delivered from sexual resentment. So they cannot undo it. Believers can. and bring more ease and peace and safety to our communities. So are you ready to labor on behalf of the Heavenly Father in this area? Let me know in the live chat. So, unlearn those false promises of sexual escalation, free sex, which doesn't even exist. But also unlearn those toxic securities of religion, which will keep you in negativity. Embrace your fragile and vulnerable design as God designed you. Especially you ladies, embrace it. And you men, embrace it also. And by doing that, you'll embrace your weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and fragility. And by doing that, you'll develop sexual health. And by doing that, you'll be a safer being to be around. And you will be a threat to the darkness in the world. You can't expect the community to become better if the people don't become safer. We need to become safer people by having sexual shame out of our thinking, out of our minds. By having sexual shame out of our being, we become safer. Because even if you are not sexually violent yourself, the fact that you have sexual shame already attracts bad people to you. So either you're an enabler unaware, or you're an active violator. Even if you're not a violator because you're not a bad person, if you have sexual shame inside of you, you end up being an enabler unaware. So, embrace how God designed you. Okay? Well, this is for now. I've spoken enough. People understand the message. Keep on agreeing with Christ. And be at peace. I'll talk more about this in the future.